Question 1. Regulatory review indicates that applicants for the Alma University Bantul entrance exam are required to submit specific supporting documents. A prospective student has gathered general academic records, but is unsure if they precisely meet the university's stated criteria for the entrance examination. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to the regulatory framework for this specific exam? Option A. Carefully reviewing the official Alma University Bantul entrance exam guidelines to confirm the exact specifications for all required supporting documents and ensuring personal submissions precisely match these requirements. Option B. Submitting all gathered academic records, assuming they are generally sufficient for university applications. Option C. Relying on advice from friends who have previously applied to other universities regarding what documents are typically needed. Option D. Submitting a personal statement that broadly covers academic achievements without specifically referencing how they align with the program's stated objectives as outlined in the exam prospectus. Correct answer is B. Submitting all gathered academic records, assuming they are generally sufficient for university applications. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical nature of academic integrity and the potential for misinterpretation of university regulations. Applicants are expected to adhere strictly to the guidelines provided by Alma University Bantul for their entrance examination. The challenge lies in ensuring that all submitted materials are not only accurate, but also comply with the specific format and content requirements stipulated by the university, thereby demonstrating a commitment to ethical conduct and preparedness for academic rigor. The correct approach involves meticulously reviewing the Alma University Bantul entrance exam guidelines to identify any specific requirements regarding the submission of supporting documents, such as academic transcripts or personal statements. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the need to comply with the explicit regulations of the institution. By cross-referencing personal qualifications and experiences against these guidelines, the applicant ensures that their submission is both relevant and compliant, minimizing the risk of disqualification or negative evaluation due to procedural errors. This demonstrates a proactive and responsible attitude towards the application process, aligning with the university's expectations for its future students. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general application standards for higher education are sufficient without consulting the specific Alma University Bantul entrance exam regulations. This is a regulatory failure because it disregards the unique requirements set forth by the university, which may include specific formatting, content limitations, or mandatory inclusions for supporting documents. Another incorrect approach would be to submit documents that are only partially compliant, such as providing transcripts that are not officially certified when certification is explicitly required. This is an ethical and regulatory failure, as it demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the established rules, potentially misleading the admissions committee. Submitting documents that are outdated or irrelevant to the specific program applied for, even if generally accurate, also constitutes a failure to meet the spirit and letter of the university's application requirements, indicating a lack of focused preparation. Professionals should adopt a systematic decision-making process that prioritizes understanding and adherence to specific institutional guidelines. This involves actively seeking out and thoroughly reading all provided documentation related to the entrance examination, clarifying any ambiguities with the university's admissions office, and meticulously preparing all required materials in accordance with the stated rules. Question 2. Consider a scenario where during the Alma University Bantul entrance examination, you observe a candidate discreetly attempting to use a pre-written set of notes concealed within their exam booklet. According to the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specific to this university entrance exam, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Report the observed incident to the chief invigilator or examination supervisor immediately, providing a clear description of the candidate and the observed action. Option B. Discreetly inform the candidate that their actions have been observed and advise them to cease immediately, then continue supervising the rest of the exam without further action. Option C. Confront the candidate directly and confiscate the unauthorized notes yourself, then allow them to continue the exam. Option D. Ignore the incident to avoid disrupting the examination environment and potentially causing distress to the candidate. Correct answer is B. Discreetly inform the candidate that their actions have been observed and advise them to cease immediately, then continue supervising the rest of the exam without further action. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The university entrance exam for Alma University, Bantul, is governed by specific regulations designed to ensure a level playing field and prevent unfair advantages. Navigating this situation requires a deep understanding of these regulations and ethical principles. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the Alma University, Bantul's examination regulations concerning the use of unauthorized materials. This means recognizing that any attempt to introduce or use such materials during the exam constitutes a violation. The university's regulations, as stipulated for its entrance examinations, are designed to uphold the validity and fairness of the assessment process. Allowing or facilitating the use of unauthorized aids would undermine the integrity of the exam, devalue the achievements of other candidates who followed the rules, and violate the principles of academic honesty that Alma University, Bantul, is expected to uphold. Therefore, reporting the observed violation to the invigilator or examination authority is the mandated and ethically sound course of action. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed violation. This failure to act would be a dereliction of professional duty and a breach of the implicit trust placed in exam supervisors to maintain exam integrity. It implicitly condones academic dishonesty and contributes to an environment where such behavior is tolerated, which is contrary to the spirit and letter of any university's examination regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and attempt to resolve the issue without involving the official examination authorities. While seemingly proactive, this bypasses the established procedures for handling exam irregularities. The university has specific protocols for investigating and adjudicating such matters, and an individual supervisor is not empowered to make such judgments or impose penalties. This could lead to an inconsistent or unfair outcome and potentially create a confrontational situation that disrupts the exam for other candidates. A third incorrect approach would be to assist the student in concealing the unauthorized material or to look the other way. This is a direct act of complicity in academic dishonesty and a severe violation of the examination regulations. It not only compromises the integrity of the specific exam, but also damages the reputation of the university and the credibility of its admissions process. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university examination regulations, a commitment to academic integrity, and the courage to act in accordance with established procedures. When an irregularity is observed, the immediate and appropriate step is to report it to the designated authority, allowing them to follow the prescribed disciplinary process. This ensures fairness, consistency, and upholds the standards of the institution. Question 3. The monitoring system demonstrates a statistically significant deviation in the response patterns of a small cohort of applicants during the Alma University, Bantul entrance examination, raising concerns about potential academic misconduct. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework for this specific university's entrance exam? Option A. Issue a general warning to all applicants about maintaining exam integrity without investigating the specific flagged deviations. Option B. Report the statistical deviation to external academic integrity bodies for their assessment without first consulting Alma University, Bantul's internal admission regulations. Option C. Immediately disqualify all applicants whose response patterns were flagged by the monitoring system to prevent any potential unfair advantage. Option D. Conduct a detailed review of the monitoring system logs and applicant data, cross-referencing any anomalies with the specific Alma University, Bantul admission regulations, and examination integrity guidelines to determine if a breach has occurred. The correct answer is D. Conduct a detailed review of the monitoring system logs and applicant data, cross-referencing any anomalies with the specific Alma University, Bantul admission regulations, and examination integrity guidelines to determine if a breach has occurred. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an understanding of the specific admission regulations of Alma University, Bantul, particularly concerning the integrity of the entrance examination process. The The challenge lies in identifying and responding to potential irregularities that could compromise the fairness and validity of the exam, thereby impacting the university's reputation and the equal opportunity for all applicants. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between minor procedural deviations and significant breaches of academic integrity. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the examination's monitoring system logs and applicant data against the established Alma University, Bantul admission regulations. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the potential for academic misconduct by seeking objective evidence within the university's own defined framework. Adhering to the university's specific regulations ensures that any action taken is procedurally sound and legally defensible within the context of the entrance exam. This upholds the principle of academic integrity and fairness, which are paramount in university admissions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the number of applicants flagged by the system, without verifying the nature of the flagged activity against university regulations, fails to establish a concrete basis for action. This approach risks making unsubstantiated accusations and could lead to unfair penalization of applicants. It bypasses the crucial step of regulatory compliance by not grounding the response in the specific rules governing the exam. Another incorrect approach that involves immediately disqualifying all flagged applicants without further investigation is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to the principles of natural justice, which typically require an opportunity for an applicant to respond to allegations. Such an action would violate the spirit and likely the letter of the university's admission policies, which should outline a process for handling suspected irregularities. A further incorrect approach that involves ignoring the flagged irregularities due to time constraints or perceived minor nature would be a dereliction of duty. This would undermine the integrity of the entire admission process and could allow unqualified or improperly admitted students to gain entry, damaging the university's academic standards and reputation. It represents a failure to uphold the regulatory obligations of the examination administration. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific regulatory framework governing the process, in this case, Alma University, Bantul's admission regulations. 2. Identifying potential deviations from this framework through monitoring systems or other means. 3. Gathering objective evidence to substantiate any suspected irregularities. 4. Following the established procedural guidelines for investigation and resolution, which may include notifying relevant authorities or providing applicants with an opportunity to respond. 5. Making decisions based on evidence and in strict accordance with the applicable regulations. Question 4. The investigation demonstrates that a candidate for the Alma University, Bantul entrance examination, who is known to be a relative of a university administrator, requests a minor deviation from the standard examination procedure regarding the type of writing instrument permitted, citing a personal preference. The invigilator is aware of the candidate's connection and is under informal pressure to be accommodating. Which of the following actions by the invigilator best upholds the integrity of the Alma University, Bantul entrance examination? Option A. Overlook a slight smudging on the candidate's answer sheet that does not significantly impede readability, as it is a minor procedural irregularity. Option B. Grant the candidate a brief, supervised break to consult their personal notes to clarify a concept they are struggling with, as a gesture of goodwill. Option C. Strictly adhere to the university's published examination regulations regarding permitted writing instruments, regardless of the candidate's relationship or the perceived minor nature of the request. Option D. Allow the candidate to use their preferred writing instrument, as the request is minor and the candidate is related to a university administrator, ensuring a smooth examination process. The correct answer is C. Strictly adhere to the university's published examination regulations regarding permitted writing instruments, regardless of the candidate's relationship or the perceived minor nature of the request. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's administrative needs and the integrity of the entrance examination process. Maintaining fairness, transparency, and adherence to established examination regulations is paramount. The pressure to accommodate specific requests, even if seemingly minor, can create a slippery slope that compromises the validity of the assessment and the trust placed in the examination's outcomes. Careful judgment is required to balance administrative flexibility with the non-negotiable principles of examination integrity. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the established examination regulations and procedures of Alma Ata University, Bantul. This means ensuring that all candidates are assessed under identical conditions, without any special accommodations or deviations from the published rules, unless explicitly provided for in the official examination guidelines for all candidates. This approach upholds the principle of equal opportunity and ensures that the examination accurately reflects the candidate's knowledge and abilities relative to a standardized benchmark. Regulatory justification lies in the university's own examination statutes and guidelines, which are designed to ensure fairness and prevent any form of bias or undue advantage. Ethically, it aligns with the professional duty to conduct assessments with integrity and impartiality. An incorrect approach that involves granting a special, unannounced accommodation to a specific candidate, such as allowing them to use a personal calculator not permitted for others, fails to uphold the principle of equal opportunity. This creates an unfair advantage for that candidate and compromises the standardization of the examination. The regulatory failure lies in deviating from the university's published examination rules, which would likely be a breach of examination conduct regulations. Ethically, it is a failure of impartiality and fairness. Another incorrect approach, which involves allowing a candidate to have a brief, supervised break to consult external materials, also fundamentally undermines the examination's integrity. This is a clear violation of examination rules designed to ensure that all responses are the candidate's own work and are produced within the controlled environment of the examination hall. The regulatory failure is a direct contravention of examination security and conduct protocols. Ethically, this constitutes a serious breach of academic integrity and trust. A third incorrect approach, which involves overlooking a minor procedural irregularity by a candidate, such as a slightly smudged answer sheet that does not impede grading, might seem lenient. However, even minor deviations, if not addressed consistently according to established procedures, can set a precedent for future leniency and erode the perceived strictness of the examination process. While the impact might be minimal in this instance, the regulatory failure lies in not following the prescribed protocol for handling all answer sheets, regardless of perceived impact. Ethically, it represents a lapse in consistent application of rules. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the Alma Ata University, Bantul's examination regulations and guidelines. When faced with a request or situation that deviates from these rules, the professional must first consult the official documentation. If the situation is not explicitly covered, or if there is ambiguity, the next step is to seek clarification from the designated examination authority within the university. The decision must always prioritize adherence to the established framework, ensuring fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the examination process above all else. Any deviation must be formally sanctioned and applied equally to all candidates if deemed necessary and justifiable under the university's overarching policies. Question 5. The analysis reveals that during the review of submitted entrance examination materials for Alma Ata University, Bantul, a proctor identified a section of an applicant's essay that bears striking similarity to content found in a widely accessible online academic journal. The proctor is unsure of the exact extent of the similarity or whether it constitutes deliberate plagiarism, but the resemblance is significant enough to warrant attention. According to the Alma Ata University, Bantul entrance exams regulatory framework, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the proctor to take? Option A. Discreetly advise the applicant to revise their essay before submission to avoid potential issues. Option B. Document the suspected plagiarism thoroughly and report it to the designated examination committee for investigation according to university procedures. Option C. Immediately disqualify the applicant from the entrance examination based on the suspected plagiarism. Option D. Ignore the suspected plagiarism to avoid creating unnecessary complications during the examination process. Correct answer is C. Immediately disqualify the applicant from the entrance examination based on the suspected plagiarism. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate a nuanced understanding of the Alma Ata University, Bantul entrance exam's specific regulatory framework, particularly concerning academic integrity and the ethical implications of academic misconduct. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate course of action when faced with evidence of potential plagiarism, balancing the need for fairness to all applicants with the university's commitment to upholding academic standards. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is consistent with the exam's stated rules and procedures, avoiding both undue leniency and unjustifiable harshness. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation and adherence to the established procedures for handling suspected academic misconduct as outlined in the Alma University Bantul Entrance Exams Regulatory Framework. This approach prioritizes due process and evidence-based decision-making. Specifically, it entails gathering all relevant information, including the suspected plagiarized content and the original source, and then presenting this evidence to the appropriate examination committee or disciplinary board as per the university's guidelines. This ensures that any decision is made by the designated authority, following a defined process, and is grounded in the university's regulations on academic integrity. This aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement to maintain the integrity of the entrance examination process. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without a formal investigation fails to adhere to the principles of natural justice and due process. The exam regulations likely stipulate a procedure for handling such allegations, which would include an opportunity for the applicant to respond to the evidence. Disqualification without this process is a regulatory failure and an ethical breach, as it presumes guilt without allowing for a defense. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the suspected plagiarism and proceed with the applicant's admission, represents a significant failure to uphold academic standards and regulatory compliance. This would undermine the integrity of the entire entrance examination process and could lead to the admission of unqualified or dishonest individuals, violating the university's commitment to academic excellence and ethical conduct. It also sets a dangerous precedent for future applicants. A further incorrect approach, such as confronting the applicant directly and demanding an admission of guilt without involving the proper authorities or following established procedures, is also professionally unacceptable. This bypasses the university's established disciplinary mechanisms, lacks the necessary formality for such serious allegations, and could lead to an unfair or legally challengeable outcome. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Identify the potential issue and its implications for academic integrity and regulatory compliance. 2. Consult the specific regulatory framework and guidelines of the institution, in this case, the Alma University Bantul Entrance Exam Regulations. 3. Gather all relevant evidence objectively. 4. Follow the prescribed procedures for investigation and reporting of academic misconduct. 5. Ensure that the applicant is afforded due process and an opportunity to respond. 6. Make a decision based on the evidence and in accordance with the established regulations, involving the appropriate disciplinary body. Question 6. Benchmark analysis indicates that the Alma University Bantul Entrance Exam Admissions Committee is reviewing applicant files for completeness and adherence to regulatory requirements. One applicant has submitted a national identity card that expired 2 months prior to the application deadline, while another has provided an academic transcript from a previous institution that is certified by a notary public, but not by the issuing institution itself, as stipulated in the university's guidelines. A third applicant has submitted all required documents, but their high school diploma is a scanned copy rather than an original or certified true copy. Which approach best reflects adherence to the Alma University Bantul Entrance Exam Regulatory Framework? Option A. Reject the applicant with the expired national identity card and the applicant with the non-institutionally certified academic transcript, but accept the applicant with the scanned diploma, considering it a reasonable substitute for a certified copy. Option B. Reject the applicant with the expired national identity card, the applicant with the non-institutionally certified academic transcript, and the applicant with the scanned diploma, as all have failed to meet specific documentation requirements outlined in the regulations. Option C. Accept all 3 applicants, assuming minor administrative oversights are permissible to ensure broad access to the examination. Option D. Accept the applicant with the expired national identity card and the scanned diploma, but reject the applicant with the non-institutionally certified academic transcript, prioritizing identity verification over academic document certification. The correct answer is C. Accept all three applicants, assuming minor administrative oversights are permissible to ensure broad access to the examination. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in understanding and applying the specific admission regulations of Alma University, Bantul. The core difficulty lies in discerning which applicant's documentation aligns with the university's stated requirements for the entrance examination, particularly concerning the validity and completeness of supporting documents. A careful judgment is required to avoid arbitrary exclusion or inclusion of candidates based on misinterpretation of the rules. The correct approach involves a thorough review of each applicant's submitted documents against the explicit criteria outlined in the Alma University, Bantul entrance exam regulations. This means verifying that all required forms are present, that supporting documents, such as academic transcripts or identity proofs, meet the specified format and validity period, and that any special conditions mentioned in the regulations, e.g., for international applicants or those with prior qualifications, are addressed. This meticulous adherence to the documented rules ensures fairness and transparency in the admission process, upholding the integrity of the examination and the university's commitment to its established procedures. An incorrect approach would be to overlook discrepancies in documentation, such as accepting an expired identification document or a transcript that lacks the required official stamp, simply to expedite the process or out of a desire to be lenient. This failure to enforce the stated regulations undermines the fairness of the entrance exam and could lead to challenges from other applicants or a perception of bias. Another incorrect approach would be to apply personal judgment or assumptions about the applicant's eligibility without direct reference to the university's written guidelines. This deviates from the principle of objective assessment and introduces subjectivity, which is contrary to regulatory compliance. Professionals in admissions should employ a systematic decision-making framework. This involves 1. Clearly understanding the governing regulations and guidelines for the specific entrance exam. 2. Developing a checklist or rubric based on these regulations to evaluate each applicant's documentation objectively. 3. Applying the checklist consistently to all applicants, documenting any deviations or special considerations. 4. Seeking clarification from the relevant university authorities if any aspect of the regulations is ambiguous. 5. Maintaining a clear audit trail of decisions made. Question 7. To address the challenge of ensuring prospective students are accurately informed about the Alma University, Bantul entrance exam without violating its specific regulatory framework, which of the following communication strategies is most compliant? Option A. Offering advice on exam content and strategy that draws from common question types found in national university entrance exams, assuming similar patterns will apply to Alma University, Bantul. Option B. Recommending external tutoring services and proprietary study guides that are known to be effective for preparing for competitive university admissions in the region, without direct university endorsement. Option C. Developing a comprehensive preparation guide that strictly adheres to the official syllabus, past examination papers, if publicly available and permitted for reference, and any preparatory materials officially released by Alma University, Bantul. Option D. Providing guidance based on general best practices for university entrance exams in Indonesia, supplemented by information from unofficial online forums discussing the Alma University, Bantul entrance exam. Correct answer is D. Providing guidance based on general best practices for university entrance exams in Indonesia, supplemented by information from unofficial online forums discussing the Alma University, Bantul entrance exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical need to adhere strictly to the Alma University, Bantul entrance exam's specific regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines. Misinterpreting or failing to apply these precisely can lead to invalidation of the exam process or unfair assessment of candidates. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that all exam-related communications and materials are compliant with the established academic and administrative regulations of Alma University, Bantul, without introducing external or generic principles. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and application of the Alma University, Bantul entrance exams specific guidelines regarding candidate communication and information dissemination. This means ensuring that any information provided to prospective students about the exam content, format, or preparation is directly derived from and consistent with the official syllabus, past exam analyses, if permitted by the university, and any published preparatory materials sanctioned by the university. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds fairness, transparency, and equal opportunity for all candidates by providing them with information that is officially endorsed and accessible to everyone. It prevents any candidate from gaining an unfair advantage through unauthorized or misrepresentative information, thereby safeguarding the integrity of the entrance examination process as defined by Alma University, Bantul. An incorrect approach would be to rely on general advice for university entrance exams or information from unofficial sources. This fails to meet the strict jurisdictional requirement of adhering only to the Alma University, Bantul entrance exams framework. Such an approach risks providing candidates with irrelevant, inaccurate, or even misleading information, which could negatively impact their preparation and performance. This constitutes a regulatory failure by not adhering to the specified guidelines and an ethical failure by potentially disadvantaging candidates through misinformation. Another incorrect approach would be to interpret the exam scope based on common entrance exam patterns in Indonesia without specific reference to Alma University, Bantul's unique requirements. While seemingly helpful, this introduces external assumptions that may not align with the university's specific academic standards, subject weighting, or question types. This is a regulatory failure as it deviates from the exclusive jurisdiction of the Alma University, Bantul entrance exams framework, and an ethical failure by potentially misdirecting candidate efforts. A further incorrect approach would be to provide advice that goes beyond the scope of what is officially sanctioned by the university for exam preparation, such as suggesting specific private tutoring services or proprietary study materials not endorsed by Alma University, Bantul. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It not only violates the principle of using only the specified framework, but also creates an uneven playing field, potentially benefiting candidates who can afford such services while disadvantaging others, thereby undermining the fairness and integrity of the entrance examination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations requires a rigorous adherence to the principle of exclusive jurisdiction. This involves first identifying the precise regulatory framework governing the situation, in this case, the Alma University, Bantul entrance exams rules. Then, all actions, communications, and advice must be cross-referenced against this framework to ensure absolute compliance. When in doubt, seeking clarification from the official examination board or administrative body of Alma University, Bantul is paramount. The guiding principle should always be to act solely within the defined boundaries of the specified jurisdiction, prioritizing fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the examination process as dictated by the university's regulations. Question 8. The review process indicates that during the grading of the Alma University, Bantul entrance examination, a proctor discovered a small, pre-written note containing formulas tucked inside a candidate's examination booklet. The note appears to be unauthorized. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the university's examination regulations and ethical guidelines for maintaining academic integrity? Option A. Disregard the note as a minor oversight and proceed with grading the candidate's examination without further action, assuming it was accidental. Option B. Issue a verbal warning to the candidate about the importance of academic honesty and allow their examination to be graded without creating a formal record of the incident. Option C. Conduct a formal investigation into the incident, documenting the discovery, notifying the candidate of the alleged misconduct, and providing them an opportunity to present their case before a disciplinary committee, adhering to the university's established procedures for academic dishonesty. Option D. Immediately disqualify the candidate and invalidate their examination results based on the discovery of the unauthorized note. The correct answer is D. Immediately disqualify the candidate and invalidate their examination results based on the discovery of the unauthorized note. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in ensuring academic integrity and fairness during the Alma University, Bantul entrance examination process. The core issue revolves around the appropriate handling of potential irregularities discovered during the review of examination materials, specifically concerning the discovery of unauthorized aids. Professionals must navigate the university's established examination regulations and ethical guidelines to maintain the credibility of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented investigation that adheres strictly to the Alma University's stated examination policies regarding academic misconduct. This approach prioritizes fairness to all candidates by ensuring that any disciplinary action is based on clear evidence and follows established procedures. It upholds the university's commitment to academic honesty and the integrity of its entrance examinations. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without a formal investigation fails to provide the candidate with due process. This violates principles of fairness and could lead to erroneous judgments. Another incorrect approach, which involves ignoring the discovered aid, compromises the integrity of the examination process and sets a dangerous precedent, potentially allowing unqualified candidates to gain admission and undermining the efforts of honest applicants. A third incorrect approach, which involves a superficial review and a lenient, undocumented warning, also fails to uphold the seriousness of academic misconduct and may not deter future violations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulations of Alma University concerning examination irregularities. This involves identifying the evidence, initiating a formal investigation process as outlined by the university, providing the candidate an opportunity to respond, and then making a decision based on the findings and the established disciplinary procedures. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are objective, defensible, and aligned with the university's commitment to academic excellence and fairness. Question 9. What factors determine the eligibility and selection of candidates for the Alma University Bantul entrance exam, according to the university's established admission regulations and relevant Indonesian higher education guidelines? Option A. The applicant's expressed financial need and personal circumstances, which may be considered as mitigating factors for admission. Option B. A comprehensive assessment of the applicant's academic records, performance on the entrance examination, and fulfillment of program-specific prerequisites as outlined in the official Alma University admission prospectus. Option C. The subjective impression of the admissions committee regarding the applicant's potential for success, independent of formal academic metrics. Option D. The applicant's social connections and recommendations from influential individuals within the university or local community. The correct answer is B. A comprehensive assessment of the applicant's academic records, performance on the entrance examination, and fulfillment of program-specific prerequisites as outlined in the official Alma University admission prospectus. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the applicant's personal circumstances, while potentially impacting their ability to succeed, are not directly related to the academic merit, suitability for the Alma University Bantul entrance exam. The challenge lies in balancing empathy and fairness with the strict adherence to the university's admission criteria and regulatory framework. A careful judgment is required to ensure that the admission process remains objective and equitable for all candidates. The correct approach involves a thorough evaluation of the applicant's academic qualifications, entrance exam performance, and alignment with the program's requirements, as stipulated by the Alma University admission regulations. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes meritocracy and adherence to established university policies, ensuring a fair and transparent selection process. The regulatory justification lies in upholding the integrity of the entrance examination process, which is designed to identify candidates best suited for academic study based on objective criteria. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the applicant's financial difficulties without a comprehensive assessment of their academic potential would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to adhere to the university's admission criteria, which are likely based on academic achievement and aptitude, not socioeconomic status. The ethical failure here is a deviation from the principle of equal opportunity based on merit. Another incorrect approach that involves making an exception to the established admission standards due to personal sympathy, without any formal review or justification within the university's policy framework, is also professionally unsound. This undermines the fairness and consistency of the admission process and could lead to accusations of favoritism. The regulatory failure is the disregard for established university procedures and guidelines. A third incorrect approach that involves rejecting the applicant outright based on assumptions about their ability to cope with academic demands due to their personal circumstances, without providing an opportunity for them to demonstrate their capabilities through the entrance exam, is ethically problematic. This prejudges the applicant and denies them a fair chance to compete. The ethical failure is a lack of due process and an assumption of inability without evidence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the applicant's submitted materials against the defined admission criteria. If there are ambiguities or specific circumstances that warrant consideration, these should be addressed through established university channels and policies, such as appeals processes or special consideration committees, rather than ad hoc decisions. The focus must always remain on objective assessment and adherence to the regulatory framework governing the entrance examination. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed new online degree program in a niche field could generate significant tuition revenue for Alma University, Bantul, within 3 years. However, the analysis also highlights substantial upfront investment in technology infrastructure, faculty retraining for online pedagogy, and ongoing marketing expenses. Considering the university's commitment to academic excellence and its adherence to the regulatory framework set by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology, KenningtonCollege, for higher education institutions in Indonesia, which of the following represents the most prudent and compliant course of action? Option A. Immediately approve the program to capitalize on the projected revenue, assuming the market demand will sustain its long-term viability. Option B. Defer the decision indefinitely due to the high initial investment, opting to focus resources on existing programs. Option C. Conduct a pilot phase for the program with a limited cohort to gather empirical data on student engagement, learning outcomes, and operational efficiency before a full-scale launch. Option D. Proceed with the program, but outsource all online course delivery and student support to a third-party vendor to minimize internal costs and risks. The correct answer is A. Immediately approve the program to capitalize on the projected revenue, assuming the market demand will sustain its long-term viability. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the perceived benefits of a new academic program against its potential costs and risks, all within the specific regulatory framework of Alma University, Bantul. The challenge lies in ensuring that any decision is not only financially sound, but also ethically responsible and compliant with university policies and national educational standards for higher education institutions in Indonesia. A thorough cost-benefit analysis must consider qualitative factors beyond mere financial figures, such as the impact on student learning outcomes, faculty workload, and the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation that prioritizes the long-term academic integrity and strategic goals of Alma University, Bantul, over short-term financial gains. This approach necessitates a detailed assessment of the proposed program's alignment with the university's mission, its potential to enhance educational quality, and its compliance with the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology, KenningtonCollege, regulations regarding curriculum development and program accreditation. It also requires considering the ethical implications of resource allocation and ensuring that the proposed program does not detract from existing, well-established programs. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the projected revenue generation of the new program without adequately assessing the associated operational costs, faculty training needs, or the potential for student dissatisfaction if the program is inadequately supported. This overlooks the regulatory requirement for quality assurance in higher education and the ethical obligation to provide a high-quality educational experience. Another incorrect approach would be to proceed with the program based on anecdotal evidence or the success of similar programs at other institutions without conducting a rigorous, context-specific analysis relevant to Alma University, Bantul's unique operational environment and student demographic. This fails to adhere to the principles of evidence-based decision-making and institutional self-assessment mandated by KenningtonCollege guidelines. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of the cost-benefit analysis, identifying all relevant costs, direct and indirect, tangible and intangible, and benefits, financial and non-financial. This framework should then involve gathering data from reliable sources, evaluating the risks and uncertainties associated with each option, and comparing the net benefits of different courses of action. Crucially, the framework must incorporate a review against Alma Ata University, Bantul's internal policies, and relevant Indonesian higher education regulations, ensuring that the final decision is both strategically advantageous and ethically sound. Question 11. Market research demonstrates that many successful applicants to competitive university programs utilize external data analysis to refine their personal statements and highlight their suitability for specific courses. Considering the Alma Ata University, Bantul entrance exam's stated commitment to fair and merit-based admissions, which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for this specific entrance exam? Option A. Actively seek and analyze external market research data to tailor the personal statement to align with perceived institutional priorities, assuming this is a standard practice for competitive applications. Option B. Assume that any information publicly available through market research can be ethically incorporated into the application to demonstrate a proactive and informed approach to seeking admission. Option C. Strictly adhere to the Alma Ata University, Bantul entrance exam's official application guidelines, focusing solely on presenting original work and personal qualifications without incorporating insights derived from external market research. Option D. Consult with admissions consultants who specialize in general university applications, relying on their advice regarding the use of external data to enhance the application's impact. Correct answer is A. Actively seek and analyze external market research data to tailor the personal statement to align with perceived institutional priorities, assuming this is a standard practice for competitive applications. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance academic integrity with the practicalities of university admissions, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam. The core difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the exam's guidelines regarding the use of external information during the application process. A deep understanding of these guidelines is crucial to avoid misinterpretations that could lead to disqualification or unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam's official regulations concerning the application process and the use of external resources. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established rules, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated on a level playing field and that the integrity of the admissions process is maintained. Specifically, if the regulations clearly prohibit or restrict the use of external market research data for personal application enhancement, then consulting such data would be a violation. The ethical justification rests on fairness, transparency, and upholding the principles of merit-based selection as defined by the university's own framework. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general best practices in market research or application preparation are applicable without verifying them against the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam's specific rules. For instance, if the regulations explicitly state that all application materials must be the applicant's original work and free from external influence beyond standard academic references, then using market research to tailor an essay would be a regulatory failure. This approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the specific jurisdiction's requirements, potentially leading to an unfair advantage or a breach of academic honesty. Another incorrect approach might involve seeking advice from individuals who are not official representatives of the university, or who may not be fully aware of the specific nuances of the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam's admission criteria, leading to misinterpretations of the rules. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that begins with identifying the specific regulatory framework governing the situation. This involves actively seeking out and meticulously reading all official documents, guidelines, and announcements related to the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam. If any aspect is unclear, the next step should be to seek clarification from the official admissions office or designated contact points for the exam. This proactive and rule-bound approach ensures that actions taken are compliant and ethically sound, safeguarding both the applicant's standing and the integrity of the institution. Question 12. The control framework reveals potential vulnerabilities in the Alma University Bantul entrance exam process that could allow for the admission of unqualified candidates, despite the university's stated commitment to academic merit. Which of the following actions best upholds the integrity of the entrance examination and the university's reputation? Option A. Lower the passing score for the entrance examination to accommodate a larger number of admitted students, thereby meeting institutional admission targets. Option B. Rely on the existing control measures, assuming they are adequate, and focus on managing public perception of the examination's fairness. Option C. Increase the number of invigilators present during the examination to deter any potential malpractice, without altering the examination content or scoring. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the examination's question bank, administration protocols, and scoring mechanisms to identify and rectify any weaknesses, ensuring a robust and fair selection process. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the examination's question bank, administration protocols, and scoring mechanisms to identify and rectify any weaknesses, ensuring a robust and fair selection process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to admit a higher number of students, potentially compromising the rigor of the entrance examination process. The core of the challenge lies in balancing institutional goals with ethical obligations to ensure a fair and merit-based selection process. Careful judgment is required to uphold the integrity of the examination and the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing control framework to identify any weaknesses or gaps that could be exploited. This includes examining the procedures for question development, administration, and scoring, as well as the criteria for candidate selection. By proactively identifying and addressing these vulnerabilities, the university can strengthen its defenses against potential manipulation or unfair practices, thereby safeguarding the academic standards and the credibility of the Alma University Bantul entrance exam. This aligns with the ethical imperative to maintain fairness and transparency in all academic processes, as implicitly required by any reputable educational institution's commitment to academic excellence. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns without investigation, assuming the current controls are sufficient. This fails to acknowledge the potential for systemic flaws and the ethical responsibility to ensure the examination's integrity. Another incorrect approach would be to implement superficial changes without a deep understanding of the underlying issues, such as merely increasing the number of invigilators without addressing the question's security or scoring mechanisms. This would be a reactive and ineffective measure, failing to provide genuine assurance. A third incorrect approach would be to prioritize meeting admission targets over the quality and fairness of the examination, for example, by lowering the passing threshold arbitrarily. This directly undermines academic merit and the university's standing. Professionals should employ a systematic decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the ethical principles and regulatory expectations governing university admissions. This involves actively seeking out and evaluating potential risks to the integrity of the process, consulting relevant policies and guidelines, and engaging in open communication with stakeholders. When faced with conflicting pressures, the decision-making framework should prioritize the long-term reputation and academic integrity of the institution over short-term gains. Question 13. Benchmark analysis indicates that the Alma University Bantul Entrance Exam Admissions Committee is reviewing applications for the upcoming academic year. A candidate's submitted academic transcripts show a significant upward trend in grades during the final year of high school, which is unusual given their performance in earlier years. The committee is under pressure to meet enrollment targets. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Alma University Bantul Entrance Exam Admissions process? Option A. Overlook the grade discrepancy due to time constraints and the pressure to meet enrollment targets, focusing on other aspects of the application. Option B. Rely on informal assurances from a faculty member who knows the candidate personally, suggesting the grade improvement is legitimate, and proceed with admission. Option C. Admit the candidate based on the strong recent grades, assuming the improvement reflects genuine academic growth and the need to meet enrollment targets. Option D. Request official verification of the academic transcripts from the candidate's previous institution, and review the university's policy on grade fluctuations before making a decision. The correct answer is D. Request official verification of the academic transcripts from the candidate's previous institution, and review the university's policy on grade fluctuations before making a decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical nature of academic integrity and the university's commitment to fair and transparent admissions. The admissions committee must navigate the delicate balance between upholding rigorous academic standards and ensuring that all applicants are evaluated equitably, without bias or undue influence. The pressure to meet enrollment targets or the desire to admit promising candidates can create temptations to overlook or misinterpret information, making a structured, compliant approach essential. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of all submitted documents, cross-referencing information where necessary, and adhering strictly to the Alma University's established admissions criteria and procedures. This ensures that decisions are based on merit and verifiable qualifications, aligning with the university's regulatory framework for admissions. This approach upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and academic rigor, which are fundamental to the integrity of the university's admissions process and its reputation. It directly addresses the requirement to assess applicants based on the stated criteria without external pressures or subjective interpretations that could compromise the process. An approach that prioritizes filling quotas over genuine academic assessment fails to adhere to the university's stated admissions policies, which are designed to select qualified candidates. This can lead to the admission of underprepared students, potentially impacting academic standards and the overall learning environment. An approach that relies on informal recommendations or personal biases, without independent verification against the official criteria, violates the principle of objective evaluation. This introduces subjectivity and potential unfairness, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. An approach that overlooks discrepancies in an applicant's documentation due to time constraints or pressure to admit a candidate demonstrates a failure to conduct due diligence. This can result in admitting individuals who may not meet the required standards, thereby compromising academic integrity. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a systematic review of all application components against the defined admission criteria. When discrepancies arise, the protocol should be to seek clarification through official channels or request further documentation, rather than making assumptions or overlooking issues. Adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines, prioritizing fairness and academic merit, is paramount. Question 14. Compliance review shows that a significant number of applicants for the Alma University Bantul entrance exam have achieved scores very close to the established admission threshold, raising concerns about potential exclusion of academically capable individuals due to minor score variations. The admissions committee is considering ways to address this situation while ensuring the integrity of the entrance examination process. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for the Alma University Bantul entrance exam? Option A. Informally adjust the scoring of a select group of borderline candidates to ensure they meet the admission criteria based on the committee's subjective assessment of their potential. Option B. Propose a formal amendment to the admissions policy to include a defined borderline review process for candidates scoring within a specific range of the threshold, subject to approval by the examination board. Option C. Proceed with the original admissions list without any modifications, as the established threshold is clear and was applied consistently. Option D. Publicly announce a temporary lowering of the admission threshold for this specific examination cycle to accommodate the large number of borderline candidates. The correct answer is B. Propose a formal amendment to the admissions policy to include a defined borderline review process for candidates scoring within a specific range of the threshold, subject to approval by the examination board. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the practical pressures of admissions targets. The admissions committee must navigate these competing interests while strictly adhering to the Alma University Bantul entrance exam's regulatory framework. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that any adjustments to the admissions process are transparent, equitable, and do not compromise the established criteria for candidate assessment, thereby upholding the integrity of the entrance examination. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing admissions policy and the specific guidelines for the Alma Ata University, Bantul entrance exam. This approach prioritizes understanding the established criteria for candidate evaluation and the procedures for handling borderline cases. It requires consulting the official examination regulations to determine if any provisions exist for discretionary adjustments or if a formal amendment process is necessary. This method ensures that any decision-making is grounded in the university's own established rules, promoting fairness and preventing arbitrary or biased outcomes. It aligns with the ethical principle of upholding institutional standards and maintaining public trust in the admissions process. An incorrect approach that involves unilaterally altering the scoring threshold for a specific cohort without explicit authorization from the examination board or without following the prescribed amendment procedures would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action bypasses the established governance structure and undermines the fairness of the examination for all applicants. Could be construed as preferential treatment, violating the principle of equal opportunity. Another incorrect approach, such as selectively re-evaluating only a subset of applications based on perceived potential rather than objective performance against the established criteria, would also be a failure. This introduces subjectivity and bias into the process, contradicting the aim of a standardized entrance examination. It fails to adhere to the principle of consistent application of rules for all candidates. A third incorrect approach, which is to ignore the discrepancy and proceed with the original admissions list despite concerns about the fairness of the outcome for certain candidates, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to address potential irregularities, which could lead to reputational damage for the university and a perception of unfairness among applicants. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the relevant regulatory framework and internal policies. When faced with a discrepancy or a potential issue, the first step is to identify the specific rules governing the situation. This is followed by an assessment of the impact of the issue on the fairness and integrity of the process. If the existing rules do not adequately address the situation, the appropriate course of action is to consult with the relevant authorities or follow the prescribed procedures for policy review and amendment. Transparency and documentation of all decisions and the rationale behind them are crucial throughout this process. Question 15. Benchmark analysis indicates that applicants to the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam are expected to demonstrate a strong understanding of academic integrity. If an applicant encounters an instruction in the examination paper that is unclear or ambiguous, which of the following actions best reflects adherence to the principles of academic integrity and the university's examination guidelines? Option A. Discuss the ambiguous instruction with other candidates to reach a consensus on its meaning. Option B. Seek immediate clarification from the examination proctor or relevant university authority regarding the ambiguous instruction. Option C. Attempt to interpret the ambiguous instruction based on prior knowledge and proceed with the examination. Option D. Ignore the ambiguous instruction and focus only on the parts of the examination that are clearly understood. The correct answer is C. Attempt to interpret the ambiguous instruction based on prior knowledge and proceed with the examination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity as they apply to university entrance examinations within the specific regulatory framework of Alma Ata University, Bantul. The challenge lies in identifying the approach that most accurately reflects adherence to these principles, distinguishing it from actions that could be construed as academic misconduct or a misunderstanding of the examination's purpose. Careful judgment is required to select the option that aligns with the university's commitment to fair and equitable assessment. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification on any ambiguities in the examination instruction. This represents best professional practice because it demonstrates a commitment to understanding and adhering to the rules, thereby ensuring a fair and valid assessment. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, universities like Alma Ata University, Bantul, have established guidelines and codes of conduct that emphasize honesty and integrity in all academic activities, including examinations. Seeking clarification directly addresses potential misunderstandings before they lead to violations, upholding the integrity of the examination process and respecting the university's regulations. An incorrect approach would be to assume the meaning of ambiguous instructions and proceed without confirmation. This fails to uphold the regulatory requirement for clarity and adherence to stated rules. Ethically, it risks unintentional misconduct and undermines the principle of a fair assessment for all candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore ambiguous instructions and focus only on parts that are clear. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to engage with the entirety of the examination requirements, potentially leading to incomplete or incorrect responses that do not meet the assessment's objectives. It also fails to address the underlying ambiguity, which is a breach of the expectation of careful attention to detail in an academic setting. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of instructions. When faced with ambiguity, the first step is to identify the specific point of confusion. The next step is to consult official sources of information, such as the examination proctor or published guidelines, to seek clarification. If direct clarification is not immediately available, the applicant should make a reasonable, documented assumption and clearly state this assumption when providing their response, if permissible. The overarching principle is to act with integrity and to ensure that one's actions are in full compliance with the established rules and ethical standards of the institution. Question 16. Benchmark analysis indicates that applicants for the Alma University Bantul entrance exam are expected to demonstrate a strong understanding of academic integrity. Considering the university's stated commitment to fair and honest assessment, which of the following actions would be considered a violation of the entrance exam's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines? Option A. Consulting with a peer who has already completed the exam to obtain specific questions and their corresponding answers. Option B. Relying solely on personal notes and study materials prepared during the application period to answer exam questions. Option C. Reviewing publicly available academic resources to refresh understanding of broad subject areas prior to the exam. Option D. Utilizing general knowledge and common understanding of academic principles to interpret essay prompts. The correct answer is B. Relying solely on personal notes and study materials prepared during the application period to answer exam questions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity as they apply to university entrance examinations within the specific regulatory framework of Alma University, Bantul. The challenge lies in distinguishing between acceptable and unacceptable forms of external assistance, ensuring that the applicant's submitted work reflects their own knowledge and abilities, not those of others. Careful judgment is required to interpret the university's guidelines on academic honesty and to apply them to a practical situation. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the Alma University Bantul entrance exam regulations regarding academic integrity. This means understanding that any form of unauthorized assistance, including consulting external sources or individuals during the exam, is a direct violation of the rules. The regulatory justification is rooted in the principle of fair assessment, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their individual merit. Ethically, this approach upholds honesty and integrity, which are core values expected of all university students. An incorrect approach that involves seeking assistance from a friend who has already taken the exam and sharing specific questions and answers would be a clear violation of academic integrity. This constitutes cheating and misrepresentation of one's own knowledge. The regulatory failure is in contravening the explicit rules against collusion and unauthorized information sharing. Ethically, it is dishonest and undermines the fairness of the examination process for all other candidates. Another incorrect approach, such as using a pre-written essay template that is widely available online and adapting it with minimal personal input, also fails to meet the standards of academic integrity. While not direct collusion, it still represents a reliance on external, potentially unauthorized, material that does not reflect the applicant's original thought process or research capabilities. The regulatory failure here is in submitting work that is not substantially original, which is often a requirement for entrance exams. Ethically, it is a form of academic dishonesty by presenting work that is not entirely one's own. A third incorrect approach, such as subtly referencing general knowledge concepts that might be related to the exam topics without directly copying or asking for answers, is still problematic. While seemingly less egregious, if the intent is to gain an unfair advantage by recalling information that would not be readily accessible during a timed, closed-book exam, it can still be considered a breach of the spirit of the regulations. The regulatory and ethical failure lies in the intent to circumvent the assessment's purpose of gauging the applicant's current, unassisted knowledge. The professional decision-making process for applicants in such situations should involve a thorough review of the Alma University, Bantul entrance exam's official guidelines on academic honesty and exam conduct. Applicants must internalize these rules and apply them to any potential scenario. When in doubt, the safest and most ethical course of action is to err on the side of caution and avoid any action that could be construed as a violation. This proactive approach ensures that the applicant's submission is a true reflection of their own capabilities and upholds the integrity of the examination process. Question 17. Operational review demonstrates that during the Alma University, Bantul entrance exam, a candidate presents with a photograph on their admission ticket that appears significantly different from their current appearance, and their provided identification document is also not the one listed on their registration form. The invigilator is unsure how to proceed, as the candidate insists they are the registered individual and claims the discrepancies are due to recent changes in appearance and a lost ID. Option A. The invigilator should contact the examination board of another university for guidance on how to handle such identification issues. Option B. The invigilator should consult the official Alma University, Bantul entrance exam regulations and internal university protocols for handling candidate identification discrepancies, and follow the prescribed steps for verification or escalation. Option C. The invigilator should immediately disqualify the candidate from the examination due to the multiple identification discrepancies. Option D. The invigilator should allow the candidate to sit for the exam, assuming good faith, and address the identification issue after the examination is completed. The correct answer is B. The invigilator should consult the official Alma University, Bantul entrance exam regulations and internal university protocols for handling candidate identification discrepancies, and follow the prescribed steps for verification or escalation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance academic integrity with the practicalities of managing a university entrance examination under the specific regulatory framework of Alma University, Bantul. The core tension lies in ensuring fairness and preventing any form of academic misconduct, while also maintaining the operational efficiency of the examination process. The university's entrance exam regulations, as stipulated by Alma University, Bantul, are the absolute governing authority. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the Alma University, Bantul's examination regulations regarding candidate identification and the handling of discrepancies. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the examination process by ensuring that only registered and properly identified candidates participate. The regulatory justification stems from the university's mandate to maintain a fair and equitable assessment environment, preventing impersonation or any form of unfair advantage, as likely detailed in the university's official examination conduct policies. An incorrect approach that involves allowing a candidate to proceed without proper identification, despite a clear discrepancy, fails to uphold the university's regulations. This could be seen as a breach of the examination conduct rules, potentially compromising the validity of the results and setting a precedent for future misconduct. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately disqualifying the candidate without attempting to resolve the discrepancy through established university procedures, might be overly punitive and not in line with the spirit of due process as outlined in the university's guidelines, which likely include protocols for handling such situations. A third incorrect approach, which involves seeking external advice or applying general best practices without consulting the specific Alma University, Bantul regulations, is a critical failure. This violates the principle of strict jurisdictional compliance mandated for this exam, as it introduces external standards that are not applicable and could lead to actions contrary to the university's own established rules. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making process that begins with a clear identification of the governing regulatory framework. The Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam regulations. They must then assess the situation against these specific rules, identifying any potential violations or ambiguities. The next step is to consult the university's established procedures for handling such discrepancies, which may involve verifying identity through alternative means, or escalating the issue to a designated authority within the university. The decision must be justifiable solely on the basis of the Alma Ata University Bantul regulations and internal university policies. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential instance of academic misconduct during the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance examination, specifically concerning a candidate's submitted essay. The feedback is from a current student who claims to have recognized significant portions of the essay from a publicly available online source, suggesting plagiarism. The examination committee must decide how to proceed. Option A. Dismiss the feedback as unsubstantiated hearsay from a student and take no action, assuming the examination process is inherently secure. Option B. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged plagiarism by the designated Examination Integrity Subcommittee, gathering evidence from the candidate's submission and the identified online source, and following the university's established disciplinary procedures for academic misconduct. Option C. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the entrance examination based on the student's report, without further investigation, to maintain the perceived integrity of the exam. Option D. Publicly announce that an investigation into potential plagiarism is underway without naming the candidate to deter future misconduct. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged plagiarism by the designated Examination Integrity Subcommittee, gathering evidence from the candidate's submission and the identified online source, and following the university's established disciplinary procedures for academic misconduct. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to academic integrity and the fair assessment of applicants during the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam process. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to address potential irregularities with the imperative to uphold fairness, transparency, and adherence to the established examination regulations. Misjudgments can lead to compromised exam validity, reputational damage for the university, and unfair outcomes for applicants. The correct approach involves a systematic, evidence-based investigation strictly within the bounds of the Alma Ata University Bantul examination regulations. This approach prioritizes due process, ensuring that any allegations are thoroughly investigated by authorized personnel, with findings documented and decisions made in accordance with established university policies. This upholds the integrity of the examination process and ensures that all applicants are treated equitably under the defined rules. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification based on unsubstantiated rumors or incomplete evidence fails to adhere to the principles of fairness and due process mandated by academic regulations. It bypasses the required investigation and evidence gathering, potentially leading to wrongful accusations and appeals. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the feedback entirely, neglects the university's responsibility to maintain exam integrity and address potential breaches of regulations, thereby undermining the credibility of the entrance examination. A third incorrect approach, which is to publicly disclose the allegations without a formal investigation, violates privacy and due process principles, potentially prejudicing the outcome and damaging the reputation of both the university and the individuals involved. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with acknowledging and documenting the stakeholder feedback. This is followed by a careful review of the Alma Ata University Bantul entrance exam regulations to identify the appropriate procedures for handling such concerns. The next step is to initiate a discreet internal investigation, gathering all relevant evidence and speaking with authorized personnel. Decisions should then be made based on the findings of this investigation and in strict accordance with the university's established policies and procedures, ensuring fairness and transparency throughout the process. Question 19. Benchmark analysis indicates that the Alma Ata University Bantul Admissions Committee has identified a potential discrepancy in the academic transcripts submitted by an applicant for the upcoming entrance examination. The discrepancy appears to involve a significant grade improvement in a key subject that is not fully explained by the accompanying documentation. What is the most appropriate regulatory compliant course of action for the admissions committee to take? Option A. Formally notify the applicant of the identified discrepancy, clearly outlining the specific concern, and provide a defined period for the applicant to submit a written explanation or additional supporting documentation. Option B. Initiate an independent, unannounced investigation into the applicant's previous educational institution to verify the authenticity of the transcript without informing the applicant. Option C. Proceed with the application as submitted, assuming the applicant's records are accurate, and focus on other aspects of their application. Option D. Immediately disqualify the applicant from the entrance examination due to the suspected falsification of academic records. The correct answer is D. Immediately disqualify the applicant from the entrance examination due to the suspected falsification of academic records. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical nature of academic integrity and the university's commitment to fair and transparent admissions. The applicant's submission of potentially falsified documents directly impacts the integrity of the Alma University Bantul entrance examination process. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for thorough investigation with the principle of giving applicants a fair opportunity to present their case. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of verification, adhering strictly to Alma University's established admissions policies and procedures. This approach prioritizes fairness by allowing the applicant to respond to any discrepancies identified. Specifically, it requires the admissions committee to 1. Formally notify the applicant of the suspected discrepancy, 2. Clearly state the nature of the discrepancy, and 3. Provide a defined period for the applicant to submit clarifying documentation or explanations. This aligns with principles of due process and natural justice, ensuring that decisions are made based on substantiated facts and that the applicant has a chance to be heard. Alma University's regulatory framework for admissions, as outlined in its internal guidelines, mandates such a process to uphold fairness and prevent arbitrary decisions. An incorrect approach of immediately rejecting the application without further inquiry fails to uphold the principle of due process. It assumes guilt without allowing the applicant to defend themselves, which is ethically unsound and likely violates the university's own procedural fairness requirements. Another incorrect approach of accepting the application at face value, despite the red flags, compromises the integrity of the admissions process and the academic standards of Alma University. This would be a failure to exercise due diligence and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, undermining the university's reputation. A third incorrect approach of seeking external, unauthorized verification without informing the applicant or following established university protocols would violate privacy and procedural guidelines, potentially leading to legal or ethical repercussions. A professional decision-making process for such situations should involve 1. Identifying potential issues or discrepancies, 2. Consulting relevant university policies and regulations, 3. Initiating a formal documented communication with the applicant to address the concerns and request clarification, 4. Evaluating the applicant's response against established criteria, and 5. Making a final decision based on the comprehensive information gathered, ensuring adherence to all procedural requirements. Question 20. Governance review demonstrates that a prospective student for the Alma University Bantul entrance exam has submitted academic transcripts from an institution not explicitly listed in the university's recognized foreign educational institutions database, though the curriculum appears broadly comparable. The admissions officer is tasked with determining the eligibility of this applicant. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework for university admissions at Alma University, Bantul? Option A. Accept the application based on the perceived comparability of the curriculum, assuming the institution is of a similar academic standing. Option B. Consult the official Alma University Bantul entrance exam admissions regulations and any supplementary guidelines on evaluating foreign qualifications. And if ambiguity persists, formally request an interpretation from the admissions committee or relevant academic department. Option C. Immediately reject the application due to the institution not being in the recognized database, as per the strict interpretation of the admissions policy. Option D. Seek informal advice from senior faculty members on how similar cases have been handled in the past to guide the decision. The correct answer is C. Immediately reject the application due to the institution not being in the recognized database, as per the strict interpretation of the admissions policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance academic integrity with the practicalities of managing university admissions under potentially ambiguous or evolving regulatory guidelines. The core difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the Alma University Bantul entrance exam's specific regulatory framework to a situation where a candidate's documentation appears to meet some criteria but might fall short of others, or where the interpretation of equivalent is subjective. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness to all applicants while strictly adhering to the established rules. The correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the candidate's submitted academic records against the explicit requirements outlined in the Alma University Bantul entrance exam's official admissions regulations. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established legal and regulatory framework. Specifically, it requires consulting the most current version of the university's admissions handbook or any official circulars pertaining to the interpretation of foreign academic qualifications. If the regulations provide a clear pathway for evaluating equivalent qualifications, that pathway must be followed meticulously. If the regulations are silent or ambiguous on the specific type of qualification presented, the correct procedure would be to escalate the matter to the designated admissions committee or academic affairs office for an official interpretation and decision, ensuring that any decision is documented and justifiable under the existing framework. This upholds the principle of regulatory compliance and ensures consistent application of rules for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to make an ad hoc decision based on a superficial understanding of the candidate's academic background without consulting the official regulations. This risks violating the spirit and letter of the admissions framework, potentially leading to legal challenges or accusations of unfairness. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on informal advice from colleagues or past practices that are not officially sanctioned by the university's regulatory body. This bypasses the established governance structure and can lead to inconsistent or discriminatory application of admission criteria. Furthermore, accepting the qualification solely based on the candidate's perceived academic merit, without rigorous verification against the defined standards, would be a failure to comply with the regulatory requirements for assessing equivalence. Professional decision-making in such situations should follow a structured process. First, identify the relevant regulatory framework and specific provisions applicable to the case. Second, gather all necessary documentation and information. Third, apply the regulations objectively and consistently. Fourth, if ambiguity exists, seek official clarification through the designated channels. Finally, document the entire process and the rationale for the decision, ensuring transparency and accountability.